In this discussion, we will discuss the discussion question of describe the steps in a budgetary control process. When we see a discussion question or essay question like this, our goal is really to expand on this. We would rather write more rather than less because in an essay question, we're more likely to pick up the points for what is being looked for. And if we write more than is asked, we usually don't lose points for that. The same is true for discussion questions, in which case we're typically getting points to contribute to the conversation as long as it's relative information to do with. So if we go through this process, we're saying describe the steps in the budgetary control process. So first we might want to just basically discuss the budgetary control process, obviously the sequence of the budgetary control process, and then we can go into more depth if we have time in those steps. So if we think about, okay, a budgetary process, it would be a logical type of process. We're thinking about the whole process of setting up and executing the budget. So the first thing we're going to do is basically develop the budget, right? We're going to develop a budget, and obviously the development of the budget will be based on the prior year information and projections into the future. But we have to start somewhere. This is going to be a circular type of item that we're going to have, right? So we're going to think of, well, we have the budget. We're going to have to prepare the budget, and then we're going to have to run the actual period. The actual period will then go by. And as that happens, then we'll then compare the budget that we put together compared to the actual numbers that happened. We'll look at the differences. We'll look at the changes. We'll look at how our budget lines up to what actually happened. We'll analyze that. We'll make decisions based on that. We'll think about how we can do better in the future based on the prior information, budget versus actual, and based on future thought in terms of what's going to happen next year in terms of the economy and any kind of relevant factors. We'll take those into consideration, then we'll plan and put together a new budget, and then we'll go through this process again. So that's going to be the general kind of process that we'll think of with the budgetary process. Now, if you have more time, you could go into different types of budgets. You can talk about a flexible budget versus a fixed budget. You can go into variance analysis, breaking down this information into more detail in terms of what each process or what each step would be. What would be the steps to putting together the budget? What would the actual budget look like? What would a fixed budget versus a flexible budget type look like? What would be the decision-making process to try to think about how we're going to make changes in the future? We take the variance. Are there further variances that we can look into to dig into those change processes? What kind of things in the future might adjust our decision in terms of putting the budget together as well? Who might be involved in this process and putting the budget together? So those are some areas that, of course, you can think into and dig into and expand on if it was a discussion question or an essay question.